Hello and welcome to Stories from My Drinking Days. My name is Harry Fell and I'm the founder of Nolo Cocktails and Bars. Today we're joined by Sophie Lee, who's the founder and director of Electric Peach. Electric Peach is a brand storytelling and impact B Corp for movers, shakers and change makers. She's passionate about using marketing and advertising as a force for good and works on campaigns for global brands, organizations such as the UN and social enterprises to help businesses electrify audience with impossible to ignore campaigns. Welcome, Sophie. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Harry.
No, it's lovely to have you here. So, obviously, a big reason that you're with us is we're going to talk about your drinking journey. But I'm just wondering, do you remember the first time you had an alcoholic drink?
I'm not sure if I can remember the first time, but I remember the first time that I got paralytically drunk, which was when I was 14, and me and my friends had been stealing alcohol from our parents' alcohol cabinets for weeks. And then my mum went out and we decided that we were going to drink a whole mixture of really strong spirits. And that ended, as you can imagine, that it would end. But unfortunately, it didn't put me off drinking.
Did it put you off for a bit?
It's hard to say because I was 14, but I think it probably not. Like, I think I was at that time literally just looking for any way to rebel, and alcohol seemed like the ultimate rebellion. So it was just the beginning, I would say, of quite a lot more experiences of a similar ilk.
Right, fair enough. I can sympathize with that. I definitely have had similar experiences. So tell me, from there then, how did your relationship with alcohol develop?
So it kind of went in tandem with drugs. So my experience of sobriety and recovery is both with alcohol and Class A drugs. And it spiraled, I would say, when I was about 16, 17, because I developed chronic depression, and using alcohol and drugs was a way to escape from a constant feeling of darkness and being detached from everything around me. And it really allowed me, or gave me the feeling that I was able to sort of short circuit that experience for a short amount of time and be able to relate to the people that I was around or feel comfortable in social situations, which I think is something that a lot of people can really relate to. It starts as a way to be comfortable in social situations, and then suddenly it can become quite quickly a crutch.
Yeah, definitely. For me, a lot of my initial drinking was to make me comfortable in social situations. So I completely empathize with that. So sort of 17, 18, you were quite depressed then, and relying on the alcohol and drugs to make you feel a bit better for short periods of time. How did that then develop, sort of, did you go to uni, and did it make that situation worse or better?
It was kind of an interesting one because I've always been very high functioning. So I think if you didn't know me well, you might think that I had always got my shit together. But if you knew me, you would know that there was something quite dramatically wrong going on. When I went to uni, I found very quickly a group of people who were very interested in taking different types of drugs, and that was our entire first and second year experience. Like, at least every weekend, oftentimes more than that. And alcohol was almost like the least bad thing. I genuinely never considered it to even be a drug or to be something that I needed to be concerned about. And I wonder if that's because I was so young when I first took Class A drugs. I think I was about 14 when I first took ecstasy, cocaine. And so it was really normalized for me from a really young age. And that seemed to be the thing to be ashamed of, whereas alcohol was just what everybody did. But very quickly, I started to have quite negative effects from it, because even at a very early age, I didn't have an off switch. It wasn't like I developed that over time. I'd never had an off switch. I'd never even understood how someone could just have one glass of wine and that be their evening. Like, it just didn't seem like it was possible for me. So my problem really was that alcohol was creating quite negative behaviors, which was really impacting my relationships with other people and my relationship with myself, and was putting me in really dangerous situations from a very young age. So it was kind of a perfect storm of already serious depression, which led to serious issues of self-worth and self-identity, which was then made a lot worse by my behavior and my total cognitive dissonance between the person who I wanted to be and the way that I was behaving.
It does end up becoming a vicious circle, doesn't it? That at some point you have to break. Otherwise, yeah, it just spirals out of control. So do you have any particular memories, bad memories of embarrassing or awful experiences whilst being drunk?
I've got very few memories of actually being drunk. Probably the first, and this is quite a shocking experience, so just kind of trigger warning that when I was 23, I moved to Shanghai, and I was working as a journalist and working for the local expat newspaper. And I went to the 10th anniversary party of this local expat newspaper, and all of the drinks were free, and I had set myself a limit that I was only going to drink, I don't know, like 2 or 3 drinks. I think realistically that didn't happen, but I got spiked when I was there. But because I was drinking, I didn't realize that I had been spiked, which is more the point, is that I was alone in China in a situation where I was allowing myself to be out of control of my faculties. And I woke up in a warehouse surrounded by Chinese men in the middle of nowhere on the outskirts of Shanghai, having absolutely no idea how I got there. So you can imagine how terrifying that was. And luckily, nothing bad happened. I have absolutely no idea how that happened, why I was there. I don't know anything really, because I passed out again and came back into consciousness while I was running away. And that really shocked me, because my thought was, well, even though it was definitely a drugging, I would have noticed as soon as something was awry if I hadn't been drinking. But the drinking side of it masked the experience, so I was just absolutely not safe in any way, and had quite an extremely terrifying experience as a result of that.
Yeah, that sounds horrendous. I'm glad you're okay. I mean, that could have ended a lot differently. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people who've got experience, especially with alcohol, because it does totally wipe out your ability to your cognitive functioning. I think a lot of people who've had problems with alcohol will relate to that feeling of like, it's quite amazing that I'm here and that I'm in one piece, because the amount of experiences that I have put myself in, numerous over the years, where something really horrific could have happened is quite miraculous. And I'm sure that a lot of people watching this will be able to relate to that if they also have those experiences with alcohol.
Yeah, well, I can definitely relate. And I think a lot of the time that I put myself in those sort of situations, I was lucky to be surrounded by family and friends who took care of me and sorted me out and made sure that I was safe. So yes, I completely empathize. So did that experience then in Shanghai make you stop drinking, or was it something else that triggered you?
It did. It was the first time that I properly stopped drinking, and I didn't drink for the rest of the time that I was living in China, which was a really good idea anyway, because in China the alcohol isn't it's a different chemical. It's not ethanol, it's something else, and it creates a very different response, so it really messes with your head. And that you can also pay £10, go to a club and have free drinks all night. So it's not good for people like me. So that was, it was a wake up call. And then I came back to the UK, and I had been sober for a long time. I hadn't done any Class A drugs for at least 18 months. And then I fell in with the wrong person and slowly got myself involved in quite a toxic relationship that eventually led to a really serious problem with cocaine and alcohol. And that was the moment that I fully made a change.
Yeah. And so what prompted that change? What made you think, because I think it's quite difficult, isn't it, when you're in that relationship and you are relying on cocaine or alcohol to survive, to suddenly make that change and realize that you've got to stop and do something different?
Yeah, well, it kind of all massively spiraled, and his behavior was really, really scary and alarming. And it was kind of, I don't think it's even dramatic to say that it was a case of needing to get myself out to survive. I think it was very, very nearly a very dangerous situation. And in that process, I did some real, I mean, it took a while. I got out of the relationship before I managed to get out of the drink and drugs relationship. But it took a lot of sitting with myself and asking myself, why did I put myself in this situation? Why did I stay in such an abusive relationship for so long? And I mean, I bought an apartment with this person. I lost a huge amount of money through the process. And the only person that I could really sit with and have any kind of an empowered conversation with why was myself. And that was probably the first time that I had ever really done that, was to be like, you've got a choice. Like, you either continue this way and destroy your entire life, or you make some changes and deal with the trauma and the pain that you're running away from. And I don't know, there was something in me that was like, you're worth more than this. Like, this is, you have more to give than this. And it was kind of getting louder and louder and louder over the years. And at that point, it was just like a moment. And I remember it so clearly. I was sitting in my kitchen after I'd left this relationship, drinking with a bag of cocaine. And suddenly I was like, oh my God, I don't love myself. I don't believe I'm worthy of being loved. And that is what is creating all of the problems in my life. And it was that sort of realization that then led to an extraordinarily painful journey to find myself again, which sounds really trite, but I think it's really, really the crux of all of it.
Yeah. So having made that decision that you were going to quit the drugs and the alcohol, what was the first stage of doing that? What process did you go through?
Well, the first thing I did was sign up for Catherine Gray's Sober Spring, which put me in a group with other incredible women who were also on a similar journey. And that was my first experience of really being honest about the impact of my relationship with alcohol. Alcohol was for me the hardest drug to get out of. It was a lot easier to move away from cocaine than it was from alcohol, and having that support network was incredible. And realizing that I wasn't flawed or alone in my experience was incredible. And from that point on, I think reading Kath Gray's book, The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober, was what really gave me the wake-up call, because she got to quite a much further point where she was drinking from the moment she woke up. But to that point, her story was almost exactly the same as mine. And I was like, oh, okay, this is a spectrum. Like, you don't just fall into everyday, all-day alcoholism. You get there gradually. And I could see myself on that journey to being there. And that was a real like, okay, I need to do something about this. And then what followed was years and years of therapy, like any kind of therapy you can think of, talk therapy, shamanic healing, energy therapy, everything. I tried everything to try and sort my relationship with myself out. And it was hard, like really hard, because the pain that I had been suppressing for so long suddenly all came up, and it was intense. It was like physical pain, physical grief that I had been hiding from for my entire adult life. It was awful, to be honest with you. But I'm so glad that I did it, because it's given me access to like the unexpected joy of being sober sums it up perfectly. It's given me access to genuine magic in the everyday.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, you sound very good at the moment. So, you know, obviously the recovery is working. What of all the different therapies that you did to help you, was there one in particular that you found the most beneficial?
Yeah, I would say for me, somatic healing is the most beneficial, because I'm very good at intellectualizing things and can talk my way out of it. I'm a professional communicator, so I can talk my way out of situations. Just realizing my light's going really funny. But the embodiment practice was what really helped me, because when I started to really connect with my body and my experience of being in my body, I wasn't so easily able to hide or deflect. I could really ground down and connect with a part of myself that I hadn't noticed before. And I think that's been interesting, because that time that I got sober, I've had a few periods during that time of thinking that I can moderate again and realizing that I can't, and it being sort of a journey of experimentation. And every time it's been that coming back to my body and really tuning into what my body needs that's helped me get back on the wagon again.
Brilliant, brilliant. So you said you've tried periods of moderation. How long have you been sober for then now?
So I've been sober in total on this journey for 6 years. I've had periods over that time where I have gone, oh, and I haven't actually and I haven't done drugs at all in that time. So that's really something that I'm very proud of. But with alcohol, I've gone, oh, maybe I can now. I've done 2 years, I can probably moderate, or done 6 months, I can probably moderate. And every single time it follows the same pattern, where it might be at the beginning, fine, fast forward even just a few weeks and we're back in binge drinking, feeling shame, feeling all of these emotions that I just don't need in my life, don't have in my life any other time. Like total cognitive dissonance between how I know myself to be and how I'm behaving, out of integrity, not living by my values, all of these things that kind of happen really, really quickly when alcohol is in my life. And it's the way that I see it is that it's not a failure when that happens. It's almost, I sort of see myself as a human experiment. And this has all been a huge data set of being like, okay, well, I've got the data from significant chunks of time sober and the data from smaller amounts of time not sober. What works better? Like unanimously, the data doesn't lie. Unanimously, my life works better when I'm not drinking, in absolutely every single way. And that's really helped me to make the choice now consciously, because it's what works for my life, rather than there's something wrong with me, which just fed really that self-loathing story that has kind of got me into this problem in the first place.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing with drugs is it's less socially acceptable, isn't it? So maybe that's part of the reason that, it's easier to give up drugs. You can't go into a building on the street, can't go into a pub and buy them over the counter. I know you can buy them in pubs, but alcohol is just really socially acceptable. We're kind of, it's around us every day in society, and it's just socially acceptable for us to drink alcohol.
Yeah, I'd even go as far as to say that, and things are changing, but when I first became sober, it was socially unacceptable to be sober. It was like, there's something wrong with you, or you're not fun enough, and I believed that. And that was the biggest issue for me. Every time I fell back off the wagon again, it was because of feeling like I wanted to belong and like I wanted to be part of something. And then making that choice often just in the moment without any real conscious decision behind it. And every single time afterwards, I thought, wow, like the desire to belong is even stronger than the knowing that this does not work for me. And I think that's really common, because we're constantly bombarded with it. Every TV show, every film we see, that's what it's like. It's so fun. what, you know, you should be able to drink moderately. Like it's really tough from an identity perspective, I think.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that. And I think some people can moderate, but I know I can't. So
yeah,
I
my mom
just
is
cannot
great.
have a drink.
She can have like a thimble and that's more than enough for her. It's not me.
No. And I think that that's the first thing that anybody has to do, isn't it? Is just be really honest with themselves about what they're like. Because we're all different, but we need to have that honest conversation with ourselves about what is going to work for us and what isn't.
Yeah.
So have you found that your friendship groups have changed since you became sober? I know a lot of people that are in recovery have found that they can't hang out with the same people, or certainly not in the same places. So I'm just wondering how that's affected your life.
Definitely, I can't be around drugs. And if I hear that someone will be doing that, then I won't go there. I don't want to be around it at all. I think that certainly some relationships that had previously just been about taking drugs and drinking together, they have ended, and they naturally ended quite soon after that. But on the whole, I'm really fortunate that my friends were really supportive of me and could see that there was something really wrong, and they have been guiding me on this journey before I made the decision, really suggesting that that might be a good thing for me. And most of my friends aren't that bothered by alcohol anyway. So it hasn't really changed things that much. It definitely has made me realize that I'm not the extrovert that I thought I was, though, and that I need a lot more downtime than I thought I did, and that I have to really think about social engagements because I find them exhausting. And I think those kind of things have been more like an identity journey to understanding myself better rather than it being about anyone else.
Yeah. It certainly sounds like you've been on a big journey with yourself to understand yourself and to love yourself for who you are.
Yeah, and in that way, it has been the greatest gift, because if I hadn't had those moments of complete crisis, as in feeling like looking down at a crossroads, if you go this way and you're almost certainly going to die even, or you go this way and you do something about it and you do the work. Like if I hadn't had that push, then maybe I would never have got as much understanding as I do about myself, and then how other people are as well. And that's a really brilliant thing about this journey of recovery, because we get to be there for others. We get to be a contribution for others and to be a space for the safe holding of other people's experiences around something that still has so much stigma. And I mean, this is why what you're doing is so important, because we need to stop the stigma before we can make any real progress to support people who are dealing with this challenge in so many ways, and a lot of the time don't even realize that that's what's going on for them.
Yeah, I think that's very true. So you do some work now within the recovery space, don't you?
Yeah, so I am a trustee of a lived experience recovery organisation called Recovery Connections, which is based in Middlesbrough. They are amazing. They bring people through the recovery process and then get them into the organisation a lot of the time. So it's a really beautiful kind of circular process whereby someone who's benefited from the services then helps others to benefit from the services. And I also have done quite a lot of work through my business Electric Peach with storytelling for recovery organisations. We did a project with Horizon, who are a film and photography training company for people in early stage recovery. And we did a podcast with them called Through the Lens of Recovery, where we interviewed neuroscientists, people in recovery, people like William Porter, who wrote Alcohol Explained, just looking at alcohol and the issue of socially acceptable addiction, basically, from all different angles.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And you must feel like you've gone on such a journey to get to the point where you can now help other people.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely still, what keeps me humble is that I still struggle with it. So it's not, I don't feel like, I don't think that there's an end point. I think that's the key thing is recovery is really a journey. It's a process of constantly choosing yourself over social norms, pressure, escaping. Like, for example, I've just had an extremely stressful week, and I was like saying to my husband, who does like to have a drink, so I have to deal with all of this. I have to just deal with it. Like, I can't escape from it. And that's frustrating sometimes, but at the same time, it gives a sense of strength that is hard to explain. Like, it feels like that kind of steely part of ourselves. Do you relate to that feeling of like, I can do this, I can feel these emotions, I can be in difficult situations and just be there and not need to escape from it?
Yeah. Do you find it hard with your husband drinking? Does he drink at home, or?
I find it really hard, yes. It's probably the only thing that we argue about. He's got a lot better, but it's he's from the north. We live in Yorkshire. It's part of the culture, and I do have to say sometimes that it's quite boring. Like, that's kind of the main thing. It's not like he doesn't get drunk really, but I just find it boring that all social situations revolve around a pub, watching people drink, talking about things that aren't that interesting, because drunk people aren't that interesting. Like, they kind of repeat themselves.
But if you're down the pub, then what would you tend to drink now?
It depends. If I go to a pub, generally I try and see if they've got some good alcohol-free beer. I do also look for places that do great alcohol-free cocktails. And by good, I mean like not just full of sugar, not just fruit juices, like actually using different non-alcoholic variations and botanical tinctures. And that's exciting because I like the feeling of having like a fancy drink. Yeah. But luckily for me, I also really, really like drinking water. So I'm more than happy to just have a soda water.
Oh, well, that's very healthy.
And cheap.
Yeah, cheap date. So obviously the range of non-alcoholic offerings has increased massively during your recovery journey. Mm-hmm. Certainly, I know I gave up 4.5 years ago, and there wasn't a huge amount on the market then. Now there's lots. Do you have any particular favorites?
I really like Beavertown's alcohol-free IPA and Lucky Saint. I quite like Three Spirits. Have you ever had them? They're quite expensive, is the only thing. And a really good sparkling wine alternative is Wild Idol. Also really expensive. That's the thing that's kind of annoying actually about the alcohol-free market, is that it's still quite expensive. But I think that the more the demand picks up, the more that it's just the way economics works, isn't it? The more cheaply it can be done. But I there's loads that I like. There's some that I really don't like, I would say. And it's kind of annoying.
There's such a variety, isn't there? And there's such a variety, certainly on the wine front, in terms of quality. I have to say I haven't tried Wild Idol, but I have heard it's excellent. And I think really it's probably the price point that has put me off actually buying a bottle.
It's like 45, 50 quid for a bottle. It's like this like the price of champagne, basically, which is a little bit. I've got some in the fridge, and I'm saving it for a special occasion. And every time the special occasion comes, I'm like, I'll just have water. But it is good. And they now, I went to the theatre in London and to see the Moulin Rouge, and they had Wild Idol selling at the theatre, which was amazing. So it is coming all over the place now, which is great.
It is. Yeah, it is, which is brilliant, because it does give not just those of us that actually actively don't want to drink, but also other people, designated drivers, pregnant women, it just gives everybody, just if you just don't want the alcohol, but you fancy a beer,
Yeah.
Sure,
I really like having a beer on a Friday but I don't want to have the alcohol, and it's and I think there's something to be said about keeping the ritual, just getting rid of the alcohol.
Yeah, Yeah. Absolutely. I completely agree. So obviously you're on your journey. Do you foresee any time where you might drink again, or is this you sober now for life?
It's really hard to say because I've said that before and then got myself feeling like I needed to belong. I definitely, all I know for 100% sure is that my life works a lot better when I don't drink. I'm so much happier, so much more myself and within myself. And that is a huge gift that I'm not in any place that I want to give that up. I think one thing I also am 100% sure of is that I will always come back. I think that's maybe the most honest response I can give. But right now, I really bloody hope so, because I'm bored of the like cycle, and I feel like my scientific experiment has reached its conclusion, and it's pretty much completely unanimously alcohol does not work for me.
Yeah, you have your empirical evidence now.
I have, yeah.
Yeah. Look it out. I think it's just an active choice to make every day, isn't it? So
yeah, exactly. And then there's that kind of mantra, just for today I won't drink, and that stops it being this giant, scary, huge, everyday, forever thing. And then it becomes just a really beautiful, active choice. And I think that's the key thing. It's like I'm choosing myself. It's not about alcohol is wrong. It's that I prefer me when I don't drink it. I prefer life when I don't drink it.
Yeah. Brilliant. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, Sophie, or with the charity that you're involved with, what's the best way to do that?
So the best thing to do is probably to follow me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active, and I post about the charity on there a lot as well. You can also find out more about Electric Peach at electricpeach.co.uk, and all of our contact information is on there as well. I don't really use any other social platform that often, but I'm really on LinkedIn every day.
Excellent. Okay, well, we'll put all of the links in the notes for the show. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been really interesting to talk to you.
I think my computer camera has been, this is a couple of times it's had this issue where it kind of tries to correct my light. So I think hopefully my words have been interesting enough, because my light has been weird.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I don't know whether it's the sun going in and out. It could be that.
Yeah, it's the sun going in and out, but then my computer tries to auto-correct it over and over again. Right. So, yeah. But anyway, you just watch with your eyes closed. That's it.
Thank you so much for joining us, Sophie.
Thank you, Harry.
It's been a pleasure to talk to you. So thanks for listening, everybody. This has been Stories from My Drinking Days with Harry Fell from No Low Cocktails and Sophie Lee from Electric Peach. Thank you.
Thank you.